And now joining the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, it is Master Fitter Tyler Fitzel. We wanted to discuss some clubs played by Xander Schauffele at the Bay Current Classic. I wouldn't say it was a bad year for Xander, but certainly a little bit of a downtick after winning 2 majors last year.
Right.
But he gets back in the winner's circle. We can kind of go through his bag. I know we've gone through it a little bit already, but a lot of Callaway in the bag. I wanted to start at the top with the driver he's playing, the Pardym AI Smoke Triple Diamond. Interesting that he does not play the new Elite. Have you seen anything in fittings this year that would indicate, AI Smoke was never a bad driver series, but I guess in terms of AI Smoke versus Elite, have you seen anything where maybe some players would prefer AI Smoke?
I think there can be a look thing.
Sure.
Because you've got some different shapes, but also some different colors. The Elite went to a little bit more of a darker finish.
Yep.
You could see a little bit more of the carbon fiber, or at least it was looking a little bit different to it. I think you have the differences amongst some of the models having a matte finish on the top versus a gloss finish on the top. I have to go. My recollection is I think the AI Smoke Pardym lineup was all gloss.
I think it was.
I don't think there was any matte.
Yeah, whereas
to
the
it.
Elite has, I think I want to say the Triple Diamond is matte and the rest are.
Also, there's a shaping difference. So one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to shape it a little different. So if he just feels a lot more comfortable with that shape. The other side of it would be the tour edition or the tour versions of this too. So this may be more than likely he's got more multiple versions. It's not like he's just got the one driver because of the testing and the hitting, and if something does go sideways, he's probably got elite drivers. This for him right now is probably just more about comfort.
Sure.
And reliability, or it could just be a trust thing. We've seen this with other top level players. Why is Scotty Scheffler still in a QI10?
McElroy, same thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like
we know the story about McElroy and the Uber with the QI35 and the QI. I mean, so there's probably for sure a comfort thing there, and it happens a lot with a lot of guys. They just find something that they play well with. Xander obviously won some big tournaments with that driver.
Correct.
So,
a couple majors. I mean, essentially, for all intents and purposes, player of the year. And I would add real quick to that, when the life cycle of a driver is 2 years for some of the companies. So for instance, like a Ping or a Titleist, we're going to see them in that driver for a couple of years versus you see some of the other companies out there like a Callaway or a TaylorMade where they're re-upping a driver every year. The best players in the world don't necessarily change their equipment a lot. They'll go through wedges, maybe a different ball, and then we'll talk about his putter too, which is also a classic. But he's stuck with that, through and through.
Yeah. So next question I have for you was kind of just going down the bag to the 3-wood.
Yeah.
Not that he plays the Elite Triple Diamond. That's not something crazy here. What is a little unique potentially is the loft at 16.5. I think we've seen, just in general, the common Fairway lofts maybe changing a little bit this year in 2025. Are you seeing more 16.5 in play now versus maybe before? Kind of with, I think in general, golfers are seeing the benefits of more loft. Is kind of the answer.
I think that's a huge thing for golfers right now, especially when we're talking about getting loft, because that can create distance. Your distance doesn't have to just be whether or not something rolls out as a total distance. It's what distance am I going to be able to carry that water, or that bunker, or the front of that green, and or just obstacles in the fairway to begin with. So it's very common. I think it's more and more and more common as we start seeing in our fitting bays, 16 degrees, 16 and a half, even 17. Those are typically. We also see some mini drivers getting squeezed into the bottom end of the bag. So really how you want to configure it, but every tool's got to have some sort of a specific use, and the more uses it has, so you can use it off of a tee or fairway or, approach shots, is try to make it multi. You get into 15, 14, 13 degrees, and it becomes more of a single-use type club.
Right, especially, 15-degree 3-woods it's still the standard loft, but it seems like for so many players, upping that a little bit can help just with how they deliver the club.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, adding carry distance potentially. So the other club, now this is maybe my favorite club that's in his bag, is the Callaway Apex UW, or I think utility wood it technically stands for. He's got the original model though, the 2021 version, which really kind of garnered a big following right when it was released. A lot of players, noticed some high ball speeds with it. What have you seen? And we actually just did a comparison video on this.
Yeah.
The original Apex UW, now there's a new one that's just launched. Differences between those, and also why is this type of club useful for players?
What we're looking at is kind of a category that bridges the gaps. So we have the spacings or the gaps and in yardages, and we try to find those spaces as best we can. So we're talking about kind of an ideal scenario to that is like 15, 20 yards as you start getting into metal woods.
Yep.
And so this one was a 21 degree that's been bent down to
19.7 technically.
Okay. So he obviously didn't want quite as much of the loft, but this is also still offering him the design feature of where there is more loft on the face. So that probably and could actually spin more. So he's got like a 19 degree that spins versus a 21 that launches higher and spins more.
Yeah.
So it's really probably he's looking for approach, into par fives. He's looking into possibly long par threes. He might be utilizing this, especially on par fours where you're just teeing off with something. And it's always an interesting mix too. Is like how many times does he use this in a round? So that'd be something I'd look at is how many times did he hit that club out of his choices?
Yeah, you're right though. I think those instances you mentioned, it's like this is a part of the bag where you're looking at a specific distance. You're not, with driver, typically you're going to try to hit it, as far as you can, more or less, right? I mean, if you hit it 350 versus 320, typically the damage there is minimal. But with a club like this, it needs to go a certain distance that it's going to, whether you're at this level or even if you're the amateur golfer, like having that distance that it's going to go is important. And so that's why he's got it specifically dialed in. But this has just been a club that people have loved, and so there's new third generation out now, but the original version also has some pop to it as well. Getting into some of the scoring clubs, if you will, he plays Callaway Apex TCB irons. Yep. And he also plays a combination of some wedges here. He's got an Opus SP with his 52 degree and then a couple of Vokey SM10s. But the key common denominator between all of those clubs, the irons and the wedges, is the Dynamic Gold Tour Issue X100 shafts. So the main question that I had with that was just, a lot of players go softer in the wedges with their shafts. Some don't. What do you see in a fitting sometimes when you're fitting somebody for their irons, then that wedge conversation comes up? What do you look for that would keep them in the same iron shafts versus maybe going something softer?
It would be more personal preferences. I would try to match them up because they're being utilized very similar. I would talk about Xander, and my guess with his wedge setup is that there's a comfort. So it's kind of, again, that predictability or that consistency that he's going to get out of it is. So it's not like all of a sudden one of them has maybe this softer feel to it, or maybe it gets a little bit more kick. And the flex is not necessarily as important as the weight. So you have differing theories on it. Is like, if I get a really soft shaft, is that going to flex more or deflect more, and then is that going to create more spin? Versus is something, if it is stiffer, we generally tend to think of the stiffer the shaft, the more spin it is. Well, that could be one of the reasons why he does that. What I say in a fitting, and like just in a whenever we're talking about wedges, is try to blend the same shaft if you can, but depending on what you'd like to get out of it.
Right, because I think with wedges, it seems like for a lot of players, they use gap wedges and sand wedges basically as a full swing club. I am that player. And so, for me, and maybe Xander's this way, I'm not sure, but I'm sure a lot of players that get fit are the same, where basically they're 4-iron through their, 56 degree. They use it for full swings, and they don't use anything other type of shot with it. And so that's where it makes sense to have the same shaft.
Yeah, and it's also the conversations we talk about with, like, okay, do I keep an iron in the bag, or so let's say, for instance, I have a 50 degree gap wedge. That's a part of an iron set. Well, that's more of an iron. And then if you talk about more performance wedges, right? So if you talk about, like, let's take Callaway as an example, and let's say we're playing the TCB, and I go down to a pitching wedge. I think they might have made a gap wedge with it. Maybe they did.
Well, it's actually funny you mentioned that because actually it lists here Xander's irons are a 4 through 10. So he's got a 10 iron technically.
No,
that might be like the
pitching wedge.
Pitching wedge. Yeah,
it's just a pitching wedge.
Yeah, it essentially is. It just has a 10 on it. But yeah,
and this is actually, if you're talking about wedge fitting, to me, this is an extremely important point. But we don't describe it as the 10th iron.
Right.
He's got a 10 iron. It's a pitching wedge. It's more of a pitching iron.
Yeah.
And then where do we go from there? So if you're talking about gap wedges is a set and like legitimate irons that are 50 degrees. That versus a 50-degree wedge, more performance, which is, more blade style. Those are decisions that you have to really try and feel based on a lot of different variables. So that's where fitting becomes so incredibly useful is, hey, let's try this one. Let's try this one. Let's see what the differences are.
And it's not just based on data. It's your feel, your preference, of how you're going to use it for sure. So last thing I know you wanted to mention or talk about as well, the putter that Xander's been using for a long time. Actually, the photo that Golf Dibber X has of it is pretty funny. It's so worn out on the sole, but it's still really good. The 2-line design, Las Vegas, kind of a custom prototype for him, but that 7 design.
Yes.
Kind of what have you seen from that, and why golfers, he's got a little bit of a unique setup with weight and stuff on it.
Correct.
Heavier, I believe, than standard. Have you seen a lot of heavier putters going in play?
Yeah, I
and what's
think
the benefit of, I guess, of a heavier putter for some people?
Well, his putter particularly is interesting because it's got the Toulon design, which is really about some face milling.
Yep.
But also there's how to put different materials that go into it. So it has
his
the
is
same.
Definitely a unique, and I think there was a limited run of those earlier this year or maybe last year.
We probably have some in inventory somewhere. If you're interested, go check out secondswing.com and the Xander Schauffele prototype. Because I think it came with the exact grip. It came they're all replicas.
Similar to like the Rory Proto Irons where there was like a limited run of the exact specs. But I was just kind of curious on the heavier weights because
it just
allows
that
a little more.
I think that it just allows for a little bit more momentum so you don't have to swing it as much. So you could have maybe just a more controlled motion with it, right? So if it gets lighter, you may have to actually move it faster or try to hit the ball harder versus just making a stroke where that momentum gets in the way. And there's a lot of companies out there that are going towards the heavier side, regardless of the length. There's some other companies out there, for instance, like Scotty Cameron always has a certain head weight balanced with a certain length. It's just how they find their performance. And many of the others just have like one head weight, whether you're 33, 34, 35 inches.
Yep.
So it's not positive versus negative. It's just, works for you. Maybe it doesn't work as well.
It's just a feel thing. Yeah. For sure. But I think clearly that his is unique and it works. I mean, very successful. He wins again on the PGA Tour. So we thank Tyler for joining us. That was a quick look at the winning clubs used by Xander Schauffele at the Bay Current Classic.